Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, Finding Yourself Again, where we talk about hope, healing, and recovery from toxic or narcissistic abuse. My name's Dontre. I'm not a mental health professional or provider. I am a survivor of toxic abuse, narcissistic abuse in relationships. They kind of go hand in hand, right? Um, Today's topic is going to be how to avoid the toxic cycle of narcissistic abuse. I got all my notes right here, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So, like I said, today's topic is going to be how to avoid the toxic cycle of narcissistic abuse so you don't get hurt again or begin to with people that have personality disorders. So there's different stages of the cycle of narcissistic abuse. To make it simple for you guys, many people already know these stages, but there's 3 stages that I'm going to talk about here. The first one is going to be idealization or love bombing. The second one is going to be devaluation, and the third one is going to be the discard. So I'm going to dive into these 3 different phases and what exactly goes on in these phases, and basically provide you with some information. I'm gonna give you a little bit of background on some things that I went through and have experienced, and yeah, I'm basically just gonna give you some information so you can know how to avoid these types of relationships. So when you meet somebody, or if you're talking to somebody, or you have a family member or any relationship really with somebody, you can catch on to these things and these different stages. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. The first stage, idealization. This is known as love bombing. What does it look like? This is the beginning stages of a relationship when the toxic person will hit you with flattery, compliments, spending excessive time with you. The interesting thing about this this phase, this can last for weeks, months, or even years, right? I was with somebody for 5 years, and the first year there was some red flags, but because I wasn't aware of this information that I'm giving you guys, I didn't exactly catch on to the red flags. They weren't as red to me. Maybe they were a little orange or yellow, but I didn't know what was to come, and had I watched a video like this, or had I watched other videos, then I would have known, what I'm dealing with. So that's one of my purposes for these videos, is for you guys to understand what you're dealing with. And I know that most of you watch content like this, this isn't new, but maybe you can get a different perspective or point of view with my video. So like I said, the first stage is all those things: flattery, compliments. They're always wanting to be around you, always saying positive things about you. And this doesn't even have to be in a intimate relationship. Like I've even met other people that have been friends and acquaintances, and they have done this, you know what I mean? And one thing about people, survivors like us, that have experienced these types of traumatic relationships, we tend to get around other people and allow other people in our life that are toxic as well. A lot of us have codependency issues and childhood issues, abandonment issues. I know for myself, I have all of those, so that could be a factor into why I choose specific people, right? Um, Interesting, like I said, this can last for weeks, months, or even years. Um, and I remember when I first got into my relationship, the first year, like I said, there was some red flags, but it wasn't anything that I could catch on to at the time. And I definitely didn't know that it would be this serious later on. The first couple months were just full of love bombing, and I felt really good. Nobody's ever really made me feel that special and that important before, and I just ate it up, just like anybody else would. And it wasn't until about after the first year of living with my partner at the time where I started to notice when we would get in arguments, she would take things and smash them all over the house, breaking glass and calling me names and trying to get physical with me, things like that. Now, a normal person would have probably got out of the relationship right then and there, right? Well, me and you probably aren't that normal. We probably have abandonment issues and stuff like I said earlier. So, you know, and for me too, at this time I knew what my partner had been through. We had talked about it, and I think that I had just wanted to be there for her, and I just wanted it to work really bad. I wanted my relationship to work so bad that I was willing to put up with a lot more than another person would, and put up with a lot more than I needed to. So that's the first stage. The second stage is the devaluation stage. This is where your partner, the toxic person, will begin to devalue you. This is when they begin to blame you for everything. They start to blame you for their problems. They start saying things like, this is your fault. This is all your fault. If it wasn't for you, da 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 da. A lot of you know how this goes. This stage is also when your toxic partner may also choose or start looking for another source of supply. Now, I know that not everybody knows what that term supply means, so I'm going to do my best to break it down for you guys. You can basically look at supply as like a new nice shirt or some new nice shoes. Me and you are the old supply. We're the old gym shoes, or we're the old shoes that, the ones that used to be nice and shiny and all that. Well, now there's some new shoes, So basically, a source of supply. What exactly is a source of supply? What does a supply do for the narcissist or the borderline or the toxic partner, the personality disordered individual? These are some things that the new supply can do for the narcissist or for the toxic person. So, the new supply is going to be a source to regulate the toxic person's emotions. They can provide validation and affirmation, admiration, which is a big one. I know that, for my borderline partner, she needed to be admired a lot, always told that, you're beautiful and you're great, and you're just a great person, reaffirming these type of things. Praise and boosting their fragile ego. People with these types of disorders feel very empty inside. They always need somebody to like validate them and regulate their emotions, things of that nature. Whereas other people may have coping skills or skills to deal with their own emotions, these are people that tend to use other people to regulate their emotions. And another thing that I think is pretty interesting too is that a lot of times when you get out of these relationships, you end up having some of the same characteristics that the toxic person actually has. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, when I got out of my toxic relationship, I didn't know who I was. You know, that's why my channel is called Finding Yourself Again, because I didn't feel like myself. I felt empty, like a shell. I felt like I used to be inside my body, but now I don't know who I am. And I know that a lot of you have felt like that. I know a lot of you feel isolated. I felt like that before. So I wanted to say that I would find myself trying to use and find other people in order to regulate my emotions, because I didn't know how. You know, I didn't know how to regulate my own emotions. It took me going to therapy for over a year. You know, it didn't take that long, but I've been in therapy for over a year now, and it took me going to therapy to realize that I don't need anybody to regulate my emotions. You know, I can regulate my own emotions. For those of you who like to read, there's also a really good book out there. It's called Permission to Feel. I can't remember the author's name at the top of my head, but it's a white book and it says Permission to Feel, and in the back it has a mood reader. I recommend you guys to look into that book and look into other books where you can learn how to regulate your emotions, like I have. So what are some other things that person, that new supply will do for the narcissist? Toxic people normally need to feel special and important, which is what the new source of supply is going to provide to them. They also have a lot of insecurities, which the new supply would be a distraction for their for their insecurities. And they also want control or power over the person that they're manipulating. For example, in my situation, I found out that my borderline partner at the time was talking to a person in prison that she used to know from high school. Now, I'm sure most of you are wondering, just like I was wondering at the time and wondered for a long time after, why out of everybody in the world would she talk to somebody in prison, one of the most vulnerable people on the planet? Well, it's because she can control and manipulate that person a whole lot easier than, say, somebody like me or you, who actually brings things to the table, actually can pay the rent, actually, you know, is a good person, and there's not much that they can really say bad about you or break you down, you know. But when you have somebody in jail or prison, they're in a vulnerable situation. You have more control over them, you know. So now I understand that. Toxic people also feel empty inside, which is what I stated earlier. The new supply will help them with the avoidance of emptiness. They won't feel void of emptiness because there's a new person constantly giving them validation in the form of words. And it could be affection, it could be like intimacy and stuff like that. Let's see. And it is also a way to replace old supply, aka me, aka you. Many of us start watching these videos after we've been discarded, you know, so, which is the final stage. And you know, it's a way where they don't have to really own up or acknowledge their own wrongdoings in their past relationships with an S. It's not just one. These people see, this is a cycle. This doesn't change when they meet somebody, regardless of their economic status, regardless of this or that. Now, I'm sure, yeah, if a toxic person meets a millionaire, I'm sure that they're gonna do everything they can to stay in that situation. However, it's not going to be a healthy relationship, and the cycle will come around. The idealization, the devaluation, and the discard always happens. Always. So that's what it is. It's a process that they go through, and that's what you need to understand. It's not going to change if your partner leaves you for another person that looks better or is more in shape or has more money. It's not even about that. It's just about a new source of supply for the time being, until they get tired of that and move on to another one, right? So let's continue on. Lastly, a new source of supply is like a drug for narcissists or toxic people, providing a temporary high. And as we all know, highs don't last. It comes down at some point. And the toxic person will eventually need another fix, meaning that they'll need to go to another individual outside of their current relationship to get the same feeling, to get the same high, to feel good about themselves again, right? Okay, so some people do more or less of these, but the cycle always remains the same. If you're talking about borderlines, narcissistic, histrionic, any type of personality disorder or toxic person, this is for personality disorders. But toxic people, they have the same traits, and if they're toxic, they more than likely have one of these disorders, right? So that's how that is. And remember, there's not a time limit on these cycles. I was seemingly in a good enough relationship for the first year. I was with somebody for a whole year before I started to realize anything really major. You know what I mean? So that could really also play on your mind too. Imagine you're with somebody for a year, 2-3 years, and then they start acting different, and you're like, hey, maybe they're just going through something. Maybe they're going through a hard time. I know about their past and their childhood or their upbringing, so maybe they're just going through a hard time or something, and I want to be there for them. As an empathetic person and a loving person in a relationship, I want to be there just like you. I'm sure you wanted to be there for them and help get them through these difficult times. You can't get them through any difficult times. That's something that I realized about not even just these types of relationships. You can't get anybody through a difficult time. You can assist them, you can help them and talk with them and make them, let them know that you're there for them. But at the end of the day, they're the one that has to regulate their own emotions. They're the one that has to get through from point A to point B. You cannot be the vehicle. You know what I mean? So I think that's very important to understand. Like I stated earlier, obviously there was red flags. However, I was not equipped I wasn't equipped with the knowledge that I have now. So making this video was to help save someone either in one of these relationships, or stay out or stay away from these types of relationships. I'm not really the type of person that tells people to leave toxic relationships, because we all know when you do that, it usually backfires on you when you say things like that. So I'm not into telling people like, oh, leave your toxic relationship. I have before, and if you want my opinion, yes, I think you absolutely should leave somebody who is abusing you physically, mentally, or emotionally, because you don't deserve that. You deserve to be happy, and you deserve to have a healthy, loving, caring, empathetic relationship. You don't deserve to be going through a toxic relationship with people abusing you and harming you. And you got to remember, this also does damage to your brain, like chemically, and it takes time, medication, and therapy, and real self-work to get through this stuff. Trust me, you don't want to be on the other side. If you haven't experienced this yet, you don't want to, and you want to do everything you can to avoid these types of relationships. So let's see. The last stage is going to be the discard. So we've talked about the love bombing, idealization phase. We've talked about the devaluation stage. Now is the discard stage, right? So the discard stage is basically what it sounds like. You get discarded. You get let go. You get let go for the new source of supply, or the new shoes, the new shiny object, right? um there's nothing more really to be said about that. And usually after they discard you, they normally, I mean, it depends, because some people will do something called hoovering, where they'll try to keep you on the hook. It's kind of like they just want to put you up on the shelf, but still feed you scraps here and there to make you feel like they still maybe want you or want a relationship with you. But you and I can tell they're distant, they're not the same, they might be being a little more mean or rude. They just don't feel the same. This is the time where you start to question them, like, hey, do you actually love me? you know um is everything okay? Are you talking to somebody else? This is where I got. Little did I know I was getting discarded at this time. And my partner had already moved on and already basically began a new relationship without my knowledge, right? And I remember asking her, like a lot of other people, hey, why don't you just let me know if you don't want to be with me anymore? I would prefer you to just be upfront and honest, and I'll move on and we could go our separate lives. As we know, that never really happens, does it? You also never really get closure in these relationships either. You can ask them. I remember after the relationship, I would ask her, before I went no contact, I would ask her, like, what happened in the relationship? Like, why did you end up talking to this guy in prison? Was I not good enough? What does he have that I don't? And mind you, all of those questions are making me feel worse about myself, making me feel like I'm not good enough. And I want to tell you something, you are good enough. The problem is you're in a relationship that doesn't value you. You're too good for that relationship. You're too good for that partner and that person. And I understand. We loved these people at one point in time. Some of you probably are still in love with these people. Even me to this day. Sometimes I'll have moments and I'm like, damn, I wish we could have worked out and been a healthy relationship. And I'll have thoughts like, well, I hope she's okay still, and I hope nothing bad has happened to her. I still have empathy for her, even everything that I went through in that relationship. So I know how you guys feel. I know exactly how you feel, but at the end of the day, it's more important to choose yourself and to love yourself and to move forward and do this for you. Do something for you now. You've already tried to do something for somebody else. It didn't work. It was a toxic situation. It's time to move on and do something for you that makes you happy. Whether that's going back to school, getting in the gym, figuring out your career, or becoming self-employed, whatever it is that you desire, I would focus on those things, right? So I wanted to mention, after you rid your life from toxic relationships, you can begin the journey of self-love and what? Finding yourself. And I'm not gonna make this video too long. I really just wanted to go over the three main stages of toxic abuse. I advise you, if you're in this situation, to look up no contact and do your best to go no contact. There's something called gray rocking, yellow rocking, where this is for like when you absolutely have to deal with somebody and you can't go no contact. You can do gray rocking or yellow rocking. Gray rocking is basically just being very boring, like a rock. They talk to you and you're just like, sure, yes, okay. You're replying like that. That way there's no, they can't get to you emotionally, and there's not much that could go wrong there. We know how toxic these people are, so they can really make something out of nothing. So you want to be as distant and boring as possible. Gray rock. Then you can also do yellow rocking, which is a little bit more nicer than the gray rocking. You can say this looks like, it's still like maintaining distance and keeping yourself far away emotionally from that individual, but you can say things like, hey, hope you had a good day, or, you know, I'm good, hope everything's good with you. It's not being rude, it's being polite, but it's also still keeping your distance and trying to stay away. You know what I mean? Ultimately, if possible, the best thing for you to do is to go no contact. That means blocking their numbers if they have multiple, their email address, um any way, social media, blocking that, anything that you can go and look up and see them, even your pictures, delete all your pictures with this person, all your numbers, all social media, any form of contact. That's what it's called, no contact. The reason why you want to keep no contact is because you need time to heal from this relationship, because it was so abusive and hurtful and harmful to you. And if you stay in this, if you stay going back and forth, you're not going to heal fast, and you're not going to heal properly. You need to heal from these types of relationships. The only way to do that is to stop contact with these people. And I know this is probably the hardest part, because don't nobody want to to cease contact with somebody that they love, right? But trust me, it's necessary. It's necessary in order to heal. If you really want to heal, it's necessary. So, as I said, once you rid yourself from these relationships, you can start the journey to self-love and finding yourself. And also, one thing I wanted to mention too, the hoovering, because I didn't really go into the hoovering thing. The hoovering is basically what these toxic people will do if they still have contact and ways to get a hold of you. They'll try to reach out to you and try to keep you on the hook, per se. They try to keep you on the hook, like, hey, they'll still call. I know for me, I went a couple months and I would still be called at random, and I would be hoovered. And sometimes I would even call, and I would even hoover myself. I would even call myself and be like, hey, just checking in to make sure everything's okay. For what though? There's no reason. I don't need to do that. There's no reason to be calling and checking up on them. You're not with them anymore. You need to let them go. And I understand how it feels. I know it's hard. I've tried to let my partner go several times. It took me months to finally say, you know what, I'm a block her. I'm gonna change my phone number so she can't call me. I'm gonna do all these things to ensure that she can never contact me again. And I know how hurtful that is. I know it hurts, and I know it makes you feel really sad. But I wouldn't be saying it if it wasn't true. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of this content. I hope you get something from it. If you do, please consider subscribing and liking. This is a new channel. I'm very passionate about it because I have firsthand experience of going through these types of relationships as a man. And I do know that there's not very much content out there for men that have experienced toxic abuse in relationships. And although my channel was for both men and women, I tend to try to put an emphasis on the men because, like I said, there's not much content for us out there. So yeah, stay tuned for my next video. It's going to be talking about the red flags to look out for, so you can protect yourself and avoid getting in or staying in one of these harmful relationships. So I want you to know that if you're feeling alone, you're not alone. I've been there. I've felt the feelings that you felt. I have been on my hands and knees before. Usually say less. Like, I normally don't have to say much more after that. You know, people get the picture with that. I wish you nothing but the best on your healing journey toward finding yourself again and loving yourself and having self-compassion for yourself. Know that there's people out there like me and other people that have been through this. We can get through this and overcome this. And I'm sending love and hugs to you, and compassion for you. You're not alone. I advise everybody that goes through these relationships to seek help, seek therapy, and if you don't have access, you can always contact the 988 hotline, which is a crisis hotline. And they're normally pretty good at talking you through things and helping you to feel a little bit better about your situation. So I hope this video was helpful and useful. Please stay tuned to my future content. And remember to keep in mind, this is about you, and this is about finding who you are and who you want to be. Bye.